I would like to call to order the December 2nd, 2019 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. First up is approval of our work session agenda, and you all have a copy of that before you, including some changes on page 2. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with the changes on page 2? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move to discussion items. First up is Innovation and Technology Report from Debbie Brannon. Debbie Brannon and crew.
Okay.
Anybody know how to fix a computer?
Thank you, serious?
I know. Well, maybe I was.
I know you were joking.
I was, but I meant to play.
Well, it makes us feel a little bit more comfortable about our IT knowledge,
It happens.
or lack thereof.
Do you want me to connect? Oh, there we go. Well, welcome to the Innovation Report. We're always about continuous improvement. And forward. There we go. Whew. Welcome to the Innovation Report for December. We're going to continue to read or listen to the Employee Digital Book Club on the Edge by Allison Levine in the month of December. Our environment is not quite as extreme as what she went through, but sometimes it is an extreme environment, and she has some really good life lessons on leadership in this book, so I encourage everybody to watch this. Again, I want to remind everybody our innovation initiative. We've set out 3 goals: to create a culture of innovation by education and empowering staff. Second goal was to expand and improve use of existing resources for continuous improvement. And the third, to visualize county operational wellness through measurements and dashboards. And believe it or not, it is December and the start of election season. And we did invite some of our election friends, Carol Souls, to attend tonight to talk about some of our election preparations, but candidate filing started today, so she was a little busy. So we're going to talk a little bit about some voter resources that are available out and that will help our citizens and our staff. We're going to talk a little bit about some Cabarrus County applications we have written that will help educate our citizens, and another app that's going to help with our precinct officials' communication on Election Day. And then to wrap it up, Todd Shanley, our CIO, is going to come up and talk about our support of the elections and the fiscal and cyber security. First off, I want everyone to be aware of the State Board of Elections website. It's ncsbe.gov, and there is lots of information there. It tells you how you can register to vote. If anybody has any questions about the upcoming photo ID requirement at the next election, candidate filings, finance anything you want to know about our elections in the state of North Carolina could be found on this website. And if you go to cabarruscounty.us/elections, this is election information that's more focused on the county election. Also, you will find some information that's similar to or linked to information that is on the State Board of Elections website, register to vote. We link to the election results that is on the state website, but we narrow it down to just the Cabarrus County returns, so you don't have to go through all the other state elections on election night. And also precinct locations. We've used GIS for a long time to draw out our precinct maps. It's an integral part of our elections. And Landon Patterson's going to tell you about an app we have out that will help people find their precinct and give them a little bit of information about the elections.
So this application's pretty simple. A user can come to this site, they can enter their address, and then what's returned to them is going to be their polling location that they can go to. It has their open times, and it has additional information about the polling place itself. So you can see in this example, or you may not be able to see, but it says they're ADA accessible, and it tells you that it is. So it gives you a lot of detailed information on the polling place itself. So it helps people to know if you live in this area, here's where you need to go to vote. All right.
And then we've also written an application for the precinct officials to use on election day. It started out from a state requirement to report wait times at the polling places. And the team took it a little bit farther. It's more of a communication between the precincts and the election officials at the Board of Elections office. And I think they have some other enhancements that we want to improve upon. We tested it out in just this last election. It was a small election, so we felt comfortable trying it out. And I'll let Landon talk about this app as well.
So this is the part of our app that a polling place would see. So this allows them to not only communicate with other polling places as well as the BOE, it allows them to request help. So if there's any problems, you can notify, and then through the chat, receive help. They can see that in the BOE as soon as it happens, as well as they can upload, or they can send in their wait times, so they can keep the BOE updated on what's going on at the polling place itself. So it's a very simple application, and most of these that I'll show you, all of it centers around unifying communications between the polling places and BOE itself. So you can see this is what the BOE will see. They will see a dashboard with all of the chats coming in from all of the polling places. They can interact with the polling places themselves. So if they need to have an action that occurs at the polling place, they can put in the input there, update your status, and then all the polling places will see that. They can also see in this view that I'm showing you here, the polling place and what the current status of that polling place is. So they can see, is their status that they need help, or are they ready to vote? Is everything good to go? Is there some issue that's there? So they can see that very quickly on this table here. And additionally, in that BOE admin section of the application, they have a map. Now this map is pretty neat. It has all of the polling places on the map, and those are the green dots there. It also has a real-time location for each of the rovers that are out and about. So you can see them as they make their way to other polling places to do the work that they need to do.
Explain what a rover does.
Oh, so a rover, they go to the polling places, and they normally will be looking for, I believe it's violations or things that need to be corrected with the polling place itself, where you can or cannot put signs, things like that. That's their main duty. So The rover, which I'll show you in the next section, they're out and about, and they're going to all of these polling places. So you're able to see that on the map in real time here and see if they're active or not. So see if they're in the app or not.
So we've provided a tablet to the rover, so there's a GPS location in that tablet. So when they're moving around the county, if there's a precinct that needs some assistance, then the staff at the Board of Elections office can see who's the closest to that precinct and contact that rover and ask them to go to that precinct.
And the final section of this application is what the rover will see. So Debbie mentioned they have a device that they can use to chat. And this chat, just like all the rest of them, can be seen by the polling places and the BOE admin side of things as well. So once again, this, like all the other sections of the app, serves to unify the communications between all of the people that are working when it comes to election time.
And we also have Mark McIntyre up here too. He's the programmer behind the scenes that worked with Landon, and Landon was the analyst on the system. So if you have any questions, you want to know how it works behind the scenes, Mark can answer those questions.
Carol also said that was fantastic, to be able to know where all of her people were at, what their status was, and if they needed resources, so they could direct those resources in that direction, so it's cool.
I have a quick question. How does it predict the wait times? I mean, how does that work?
They will actually count the number of people in line and report that number back, and I believe that the state wants that every 30 minutes or so.
Previously, the state had requested that information every 30 minutes with the change in the board and things like that. That requirement has drifted from less of a requirement and more something that we're looking to provide. Obviously, during one stop, that's really the lines back up. So we're definitely with the March election coming up, we wanted to test that rollout. The other thing I wanted to you guys to know about the collaboration that went into this effort. Obviously, my team is very talented to be able to develop that application, but the iPads that we delivered to the precincts were borrowed from KCS. So we did that. We were able to provide that at no cost. We returned those to them after the election, and we were able to provide that. And then additionally, because there's not wireless at each of these locations, we collected up the MiFis that people use when they're on call or what have you for that day, and we're able to use that. And again, occurred no additional cost for that day. And then collaborated with Cabarrus County Schools for those polling places that were Cabarrus County School locations to use their Wi-Fi. Obviously, there's security involved, but because of the level of communication that was going on this application, it was really just informational. So it was a lot of collaboration that went on behind the scenes to make this work for Carol. And Mike, you're right, that she definitely was very excited about this and has a very long list of enhancements that she'd like to see for the next election. And we're very excited to provide that to her because I've worked 19 years worth of elections with the Board of Election staff, and this is really the most innovative thing I think we've done since buying those the M1000 polling machines. So it's a very impressive application, and I thank you guys for developing that.
So on the wait time, is it per person, or is there a time per person? Like if you have 10 or if you have 15, what's that multiplier, or is it just a guess?
It's just a guess. I think what we're going to try to do is more of a, this is how many people are in line versus, because I don't know that we can tell you that. I think we've talked about the Disney function, or I think Debbie came up with, hand the last person in line at the half-hour point a card, and when they get to them, that way you know how long, time that point, how long it took to get to there. So I don't know that there's a scientific way to collect that data the way we're doing it today, but I think the idea during one stop, if the actual Board of Elections allows it, is to publish this information to the web so people can know that oftentimes the polling place in Harrisburg backs up while the polling place in Concord at the fire station has no line. So if we can transfer people to go there and have less time, we can maybe get a better turnout. So I think that's the goal, to be able to take the technology and enhance the actual end user's experience.
So for those people that watch election results, every election, at the end of the evening, there's 2 boxes or 3 that just don't ever report.
Yes, sir.
What usually causes those delays? Because there's some that are almost instantaneous.
Yeah, yes, sir. So they're the, it's usually a breakdown, I shouldn't say a breakdown, it's, them just getting all of their things returned to us. And I think that's one of the things that drove the creation of this app was I've been there at that hour, that, sitting there waiting and wondering where that one precinct was. And with the ability for them to change that status, that they were on the road, gives the election staff that visibility to know, okay, these people don't need help, they're on their way. It's just taking them a little bit longer to come in from Harrisburg or where they are. But yes, it does.
So those votes don't actually get published and counted until they physically deliver it to the Board of Elections. Is that right?
Correct, sir. So there is a flash drive along with the ballots that are delivered to the Board of Elections. And when we do that, we put them in a machine that is not connected to our network. It is a very secured environment. So we take that flash drive and insert it into the tallying machine, and then verify that the vote count matches what's on the tabulator to this device, and then count those votes. And then obviously there's a lot more function that goes on Carol's side, but that is what happens on the night of.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so the election security piece has been something that obviously we've all heard a lot about in the news since the last presidential election. So the North Carolina Board of Elections had sent out a list of requirements that was very helpful for us as a county. Obviously, the state, it's a state mandated, local administered department, like many of the things that we do. So as a county function of IT, it's sometimes a little bit difficult for us to know where our boundary begins and theirs stops. So they were able to outline some very specific guidelines for us and what their expectations are. So as you guys know from going to One Stop, those are conducted on laptops. So and those poll workers are required to have passwords and have multiple passwords. And I think we've talked a little, Jack was here a couple months ago talking to you guys about multi-factor authentication. That multi-factor authentication, transferring that to a less technical part-time employee as a poll worker is definitely a challenge for us. So our team has created a very specific way for them to be able to do that, giving them a password and then allowing them to swipe their badge to be able to keep that going, rather than a part-time employee writing down multiple passwords or having multiple pieces in place to ensure that we're meeting those standards, because those standards are very very important to make sure that our elections are safe and secure. Hard drive encryption was another one that came up out of that piece, and we're striving to make sure every single computer has that hard drive encryption, because if those devices are lost, we want to make sure that the data is not compromised. The second item up there is the MS-ISAC, so that Multi-State Information Election Sharing and Analysis Center, and the EISAC, the Elections Infrastructure. They actually provide cybersecurity bulletins to us on a daily basis if there's something that we need to be aware of. So those alerts, like when you get those Windows updates or something that there's a vulnerability out there, they're doing that, and they conduct monthly conference calls that our staff participates in. So those are very important for us to be able to ensure that we're following not only state guidelines but federal guidelines to secure the election. The last thing I wanted to mention to you is that IAM, IT, and the Board of Election staff met with a representative from Homeland Security late last year to talk about the hardening of the facility itself. And I believe that we're in very good shape. The one last thing that we're doing there currently is adding cameras to the facility. So those will be done before the March primary, or before February, when the one-stop starts at that location, but adding those cameras on the outside to ensure that the election can occur in a safe environment and things like that. We do have door access control at that facility, and it's a very nice facility, and Homeland Security was very impressed with the environment that was provided for our elections. Sorry, what was your next slide?
That's it.
Yep.
So that concludes our report on prepping for the 2020 election. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, there was one point that I was recently asked at a conference that how many staff, what percentage of our staff that we use in IT to support the elections. And I said, well, let me see. We have 29 employees, and so election morning we have 29 employees, so 100%. So our staff gets up early with the poll workers and is assigned, each employee is assigned 2 poll locations to check on. So on election day, the poll book is an electronic poll book. So there's a laptop there, there's a printer, and to make sure that those elections go off seamlessly, we try to get out there early and head off any issues rather than having the rovers have more than just the couple that they have to cover those. So again, IT has taken a very active role in the elections piece, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate the report and appreciate what you do. Okay, we move now to discussion items for action. First up is active living in parks, fees and charges policy. Londa and Byron, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. As you may or may not remember, each year we do our fee and charge policy. So it's effective January 1st, so we don't do it with the fiscal year budget. And that's why we are here this afternoon, is to bring some of or all of the changes. These are only fee changes. Anything that was grammatical or something that we switched around, we didn't include that in here if it had no meaning whatsoever. Byron has worked with our staff in getting these fees changes, and so I'll let him go over those.
Thank you. And what you'll see in front of you, thank you so much, Lauren, is a summary, not the entire fees and charges packet. Instead of you having to go through the entire packet, this is just a highlight of the actual changes that are there. The first one is listed on page 5 as our fishing permits. So in our department's history, we have never increased our fishing prices from $1 in 40 plus years. So we are looking at changing that to $2 per day and then having the annual passes to match that fee increase. Page 10, we have the group birthday parties at Franklin Park, and we are increasing or requesting an increase from $5 to $6 per person for the group birthday party, and excluding the 30-minute nature wildlife program just based on staffing demands for that. And the cost increase in both option 1 and 2 is just for the price of the food increasing. And so that option 2 again is just the subtract that 30-minute nature wildlife program based on demand of groups coming in. We would like to not tell them no based on staff availability and to continue these groups to come in. Page 11, we have our Franklin Park softball fields. So increasing from $10 to $15 per hour per field. And again, increasing the fields with lights from $15 to $20 per hour per field, just in making sure that we are staying competitive with our neighbors with our high quality product. We're making sure that our prices match, increasing as we go through. Page 11, we have our paddle boats, and that is a change of just operational hours, so not a decrease or increase in the operation time, just a change in the hours themselves, just based on demand and use needs. So changing from 12 to 7 p.m. to 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., just based on the demand coming in. Same for mini golf, changing from 12 noon to 7 p.m. to 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Page 11 there for number 5 is going and offering an exclusive use option. So our facilities where we have paddle boats and miniature golf, providing an opportunity for someone to rent the facility for their own use, where the general public would not have access to that, and we put in parameter times where they can come in Monday through Friday to rent the facility for their exclusive use, or after operational hours on Saturday and Sunday, so that 9 to 11 a.m. or 6 to 8 p.m. And the same for the miniature golf. The cost for those have stayed the same for this exclusive use, just putting parameters on the times that it's available to the public. And the
Just,
group.
excuse me one second, just as a point of clarification, the paddle boats are not open Monday through Friday during the
Correct.
day. That's why that's written the way that is, and mini golf is not open after 5, Monday through Friday during the day. So we're only weekend hours.
The group use piece, we are recommending a change from right now. Currently, we have in place an advance purchase necessary 7 days in advance to have a group package that would allow opportunities for people to come in at a reduced rate to have larger groups come in. Changing that to removing the actual 7 days in advance so we don't turn away large groups which show up at Franklin Park on a regular basis, and offer this and putting a minimum of 25 for your group size to take advantage of this rate. We do have a lot of groups that show up day of, and this would give us the opportunity to entice them to utilize our facilities, keeping the price structure the same. The soccer complex, soccer field hours changing from $25 to $40 per hour, and then the soccer field per day to an 8-hour restriction from $225 to $250 per field. Again, just the high quality fields that we provide, just making sure that we are staying competitive with our neighboring agencies. The ball field rental policy, under that we have increased from $75 to $100 for the equipment use, and that's just costing the actual equipment and making sure that we are covering our costs on those expenses. Page 12, our activities of our day camp, I recommend a change from $100 to $110, and $130 to $140, and that scale difference in there is we have an early registration offering. So when someone registers, we encourage everyone to register for all the weeks of camp ahead of time and have an enticement to register early. So that's where you see that price from $100 to $130. We are proposing to increase that from $110 to $140, and that is still drastically cheaper than any daycare opportunity that you have. And this is an all-day long day camp with high-quality programs offered the entire time. And the last piece here is just over our road races, adding in and specifying the races being a 5K for that individual cost. And there, the change for the family registration, putting a maximum of 6 and increasing from $60 to $65, and then the late registration from $70 to $75. We just thankfully have a great increase in family registrations, so we need to make sure that our prices match for the number of family registrations that are coming in. Now, that was a lot of things, so please, by all means, any questions or any clarification that I can provide on any of those changes.
I've got a question, because you said it twice, under softball and soccer, and I'm not sure I'm following you. You said we've got nice facilities and to be competitive, and that makes it sound like we're lowering a rate.
Correct.
Staying competitive doesn't equal raising a rate, so I'm not quite sure I'm following you there.
We want to ensure that our prices match our neighboring facilities. Right now, our facilities, the quality of our facilities are impressive, and we want to make sure that our price matches that. And looking at other agencies and what they are charging for their per hour rate, we have the flexibility to increase and still provide that high quality product.
Okay.
We were under what our
So
neighbors.
we can raise the rate and still be under what a competitive field would be.
Correct.
In niceness isn't the best word, but okay. Great, thank you.
Londa, just a question not related to the fees, but if you have one of these large groups coming in to play putt-putt during the day when it's open to the public, how does the public know? So, because they know they're not going to be able to get on the course.
During the day, Monday through Friday, we'll have it's open partially. We've opened up the mini golf during the day on convenience. So it would not be open to anybody except that group at the time.
Except, okay.
Yeah.
But is it on the websites or something? How does I have 3 kids, I want to go play putt-putt today, and I get there and there's 30 people on the course and it's closed for the next 3 hours. How do I know that ahead of time? Or do you?
Ahead of time, you would not know that.
You would know.
Yes.
A lot like our group sites, it's
Yeah.
first come, first serve based
Right.
on availability.
Okay. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe,
as-
maybe we can work with Todd and his folks and we can get that on.
That's right. Yes, get wait time on there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wait times.
Okay, any other questions for Londa or Byron? Okay, and I think you have our next item, Town of Midland request.
That we do. Town of Midland mayor, manager, and one of the board members came to the Active Living and Park Commission October meeting to ask for recommendation on renaming or naming the pond trail at Rob Wallace Park in memory of Reed Parlier. I believe I've said his last name correctly. The young man from Midland who was one of the victims of the UNCC shooting who lives in Midland. And they had a nice presentation for us, and the Park Commission was very much in favor of doing that. I don't think Commissioner Shue was there that night, if I remember correctly. Is that? Yeah, you were not there. That's what I was thinking. And they had some good discussion. And all they're wanting to do is put a plaque up along the loop around the pond, which is behind the main office, of which they would pay for and pay for the installation. And our Park Commission was very much in favor of that, in favor of recommending that to this board to see what you all have to say about that.
Questions or comments? Yeah, very appropriate. A Cabarrus County resident, and that was a tragic event that impacted our entire region, and so I think that's a very nice gesture. Yeah. Okay, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item 4.3, which is appointments to boards and committees. And all of you have been provided with a list of those in advance. And so if there are any questions or comments, we would entertain those at this time. And if not, we will move to item 4.4, Commissioner Appointments for 2020. And I think a copy, there is a chart of those included in your agenda as well. Lauren, are there any changes on those, or are those the same as this past year?
Same as this past year so far.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to change.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Any requests for changes or comments on that? Okay, great. Then we will move to item 4.5, resolution establishing the Board of Commissioners 2020 meeting schedule, which is also attached, and I think that covers our regular meetings, summits, budget workshops, a number of items on there, all of which are obviously subject to change and adjustment from time to time. Any questions on that one?
I didn't look at it, because I figured just the same as we always do, but are the retreats on there? Did we decide on the dates for the retreats? February 28th and 29th?
Yeah, there were some questions from a couple of you that I think Blake had an event that he was gonna have to rearrange or on that weekend, and I think Steve had one too, so, it's up to you guys. We can move it back a week.
No, that day was fine. I just knew I would have something that evening, and I wasn't sure what time we would finish, but
On the Saturday?
no, on the 28th, which I believe is Friday,
Friday,
yeah,
Done at 8.
yeah, 8 o'clock. We can be out there by 8.
PM. I probably will not be there that long. Would need to leave probably 6-ish. 6:30. So I didn't feel it necessary to can the whole day and have the whole board look for a new date over an hour. And the 29th is fine, so it's just that night.
You good?
Yeah, I think so. And then currently, I mean, that's the way it's in this resolution for the 28th at 4 o'clock and the 29th at 8 a.m. So we can always take a look at that later if we need to.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the most exciting thing on that schedule is in August when we host the NCACC State Convention in Concord.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
we're
we
looking
are
forward
very
to having
excited about
people
that.
from all over North Carolina come to Cabarrus County so we can show it off a little bit more. Okay, if there are no additional comments, then we will move to item 4.6, Strategic Plan Final Draft Review, and the county manager will lead us in that discussion.
Yeah, Robbie is not in the office today, he's out of town, right? Is that right? So we just wanted to bring this to you. You had the rough draft, and you were able to make comments. Those comments have been included in this draft that you see here. And we wanted to open up this time for any further discussion. Our Communications Department, Kasha, is working on softening the language and making it readable, a little bit more readable instead of just hard bullets. And so that is still to be done. So you have some time to discuss now or in the next week or two to add some additional language, but understanding that communications is working now to I guess for lack of a better way, make it more readable than just the hard bullets. So what you see there is what the changes or the recommendations you made have been included on here. So if you had any comments or questions, now is a good time. If you don't have them now, then you feel free to just send them to us and we will react accordingly.
And we went through these pretty comprehensively, I think, last month, and did suggest a couple of changes which appear to be here. Does anybody have anything at this time to comment on? We've looked at this quite a few times, haven't we? Yeah. Okay. Very good. If anybody thinks of anything, like Mike said, please let staff know. So we move to item 4.7, governmental skylight and roof repair and adjustments to the construction and renovation fund. Susan, Kyle, and Michael.
So we've come to you before talking about the repairs that need to be made to the skylight and the roof. And it's time now to start looking at final numbers or getting closer to it. As we've done that, we've had allocated $2,085,000 for this project, but it's come to our attention right to date, we're going to need additional $492,722 for now. And as we get closer and closer, the numbers will be revised. This project will be included in our debt that we're going to go out for in February. And my next agenda item was talking about the debt. But also have Kyle and Michael here to update you on some of the more construction-related technical talks about the governmental skylight and roof replacement. So I'll turn it over to, well, let me update them. One more, for the $492,000, I have a budget amendment and a project ordinance to get that updated in our financial records. We do have money on hand of some debt service that we're not going to be spending between now and June, that we will be able to allocate that money for this project. Okay, Michael.
Okay. Lauren, can you pull up those pictures I sent you? The larger packet first. Yes. No, the other one. I'm sorry. That's it. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on where we're at with this project. The purpose is to basically replace the horizontal skylights with a vertical clear story that will allow the same amount of light inside the building and also deal with the leaking in and around the skylights that are there now. So the schematic drawings are complete, the construction drawings are in process, and I've sort of put together some images here to help you visualize the work we're talking about doing. This is a view of the governmental center, right in the center of the building there, or center of the picture there, the courthouse off to the right. So you can see outlined in red the skylights around the center of the building, as well as the skylights on the back above the balcony and the front above the entrance. And those are what we're talking about taking out. And then, of course, re-roofing the entire building. You go to the next page, please. This is a section cut through the center of the building. So if you sliced it in half and looked at one half or the other, the commissioner's chambers is right there in the center. In the darker shaded areas are the skylights that we're talking about taking out. Here's the next page. So you can see that right on the left and right side of the Board of Commissioners chambers there, we're talking about putting a vertical window in there called the clear story, and then a shed roof back to the center of the building that will hopefully stop any leaks and prevent them from in the future as well. And then, like I said, also allow the same amount of light inside the building. Next page. And this is a snippet I took from the structural drawings. It's a good representation of what we're talking about doing because of the members shown in red. Those are the structural members that we'll be adding in, and it shows some contrast there so you can easily see what's being added. On the left side of the image is the actual clear story around the center of the building, and on the right side are the upper and lower canopies that will be a part of phase 2 of this project that excuse me, that will protect the opening of the building. Next page. And these last images are just the model that our architect's done for us. This is a view from Church Street looking at the front of the building that shows the upper and lower canopies that I said were phase 2 of the project. This is a close-up shot of the same view of the building. It shows real good the lower canopies there.
Just to clarify, those are phase 2. That is not something we're doing in this part. This is for the future, to be able to add some, not only inclement weather coverage for folks coming in the building, but that top crown part would be to add some, I guess, mass to the building because of what we're going to be doing across the street with the courthouse. So this phase 1 just deals with adding the actual structural members or large beams in the building so that it can take that on in the future.
And we won't have to do any reworking of the new roof we're putting on. Like you said, we're putting all that structure in now so that we'll be ready to put the second phase canopy on.
That's why we're taking the cost on now. So anytime you do a roofing project, you flash up your roof, you seal your roof. We want to do all of it at one time so we're not having to come back, open it back up, put these structural members in, and most likely, in our luck, cause more leaks somewhere down the line.
Kyle, who's the architect that we're using to do this work?
C Design. Through an RFQ process, they had extensive work with both vertical and horizontal skylights and translucent properties in the airports is where they did most of it. If you go to Charlotte Airport and you look up, you'll see a lot of their work. And we were looking for an architect that specifically had done it, and we talked to the facility manager of the facility to make sure they didn't have what we had.
So Commissioner Shu, when you were doing the Airport Academy, you saw a lot of their work with the new concourses they've done.
Right.
A lot of that is their work and design, and part of that was just like Kyle is saying, we're very worried about decreasing the amount of light, because that's a notable part of this building is how much light comes into the center, and so we wanted to find someone who with a lot of experience doing that.
Right. Well, I was just curious, about the RFQ, and then with the price being elevated to about close to $500,000 higher, and that was just of a concern as to, why it was that much. Did they give us any reason why?
Yeah, the biggest driver is the exterior skylights, so the ones that are over the front entrance and over the back porch. Nobody thinks about those being skylights because they're already outside areas. If you're walking in, you have no idea that they're up there. I guarantee if you walk in the front entrance of the building, you've never looked up and seen that there's a skylight above you. When they broke out the different phases in that, they were thinking that we might leave those in and not do those until we did phase 2. And what we told them is, we have water coming in those spots also. They need to be taken out and taken care of now, and we need to do it all now. Part of this project will involve cutting open a lot of the drywall that's above us, especially in the entrance areas, and going in there and fixing years of leaks. If we do this project, there's no reason to ever have to go back and do it again. We'll just add a canopy. So the increased cost was from that, and like Michael said, only schematic drawings have been done. So this is very similar to when I came to you last month with the different GMP costs for the courthouse. These are not the construction drawings. These are the schematic drawings, and we already have a construction manager at risk engaged, and they're looking at these, and they're giving us these numbers, and that's why we're doing all of this ahead of time to make sure that we go out for enough to cover this project. So this is not the exact GMP number we're bringing to you. That will be next month, I'm sorry, February, when we come up with that actual GMP number for that.
And when are you proposing to do phase 2? You do this will take place in 2020,
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
And then,
Correct. This is going to take place right at the same time we're doing starting everything across the street, because we felt like we needed more to handle all at once in terms of staging all that equipment. Phase 2 has not been planned. It's currently shown in the CIP for future years. I would urge management and the board to wait until after the new courthouse is opened, in terms of understanding the scale of what that building does to downtown before you decide what you're going to do to this building to add that comparable scale. I think the building across the street is just as when we built the sheriff's department. It's going to dwarf us for a while, and you're going to notice that. And these different phase 2s are to add scale to this building, not just to cover for inclement weather, but also to add just literally mass to the building.
The increase, and correct me, is a little bit of an increase in scope on this first phase that we weren't planning to do in phase 1, correct?
Correct, and it's
Yeah,
directly revolving around those exterior skylights.
Right. So the amount you got originally, it's a bigger job than what we had originally brought to you the first time. So the scope increase, so of course the money had to go up. And as Kyle said, there is some functional purpose to those, but there also is the appearance or the aesthetics of building mass around the building to make it compatible with the other ones around. So, and as you know, we've talked about this before, if it rains hard around here, you're dodging buckets and you've got hoses running everywhere. So that is why we're doing it. We've been patching it for 25 of the last 30 years, or thereabouts. Yeah. So it's time, because it seems like every time it happens, there's more damage and a whole lot of resources being expended with our facility services guys and our building services guys. So
Let's ask a very painfully obvious question. Are there skylights on the new courthouse?
The architect was given very specific directions at the beginning of that project. I'm sure you can imagine what those directives were.
That is a very good answer. And just out of curiosity, did Silling, out of maybe their own curiosity, spend any time to look at any of the methods and details and flashing of a 25, 30-year-old building to say, okay, just to get their own insight of why and how things have leaked and progressed over time on a building that's this age?
Yes, we actually have a couple different theories on what happened, because if you go up on the roof, there's several sets of skylights, and they're angled at different angles. And obviously, the ones that cause the bulk of our leaks are more horizontal, more flat, less slope, meaning more water sits on them. And it appears that those were set at a certain angle because of the upper windows that are in the Board of Commissioners chambers that you would never even know were there. So if you walk into the Board of Commissioners chambers right now, it's dark and you can see light coming in. Well, they wanted to get those frames underneath those windows instead of above. And that is what caused our lower angle up there. And yes, they looked at that. And I really don't think that was a design issue. That was most likely once the contractor got in the field, if you want us to be. That's what we've all kind of been up there and looked at it with roofers, and that's what they said. But you don't see a lot of just horizontal flat skylights anymore. They kind of do translucent. When they run it to just be flat like that, that translucent roofing is a little bit different now. It's not with all those seams. But yes, they've been, Silling has been read the riot act on windows, and terminations and flashings and things like that.
Well, Kyle, I'm glad that you're doing the whole roof anyway, because a 30-year roof, I mean, and you're doing this already, so it's good that you're doing the whole thing at this time. There's not many buildings, or I don't know many buildings, or not even schools that'll get 30 years out of a roof, and that's the original roof, I do believe.
No, that is a once-over roof right there. That was it's been built over once already.
In 30 years.
Yes, that's correct.
Is it, are you going back with the same as it is now?
No, we are not, and we're taking the ballast off also. There's rock up there, which is why you can sometimes see rocks on top of the skylights. So birds pick up those rocks. We have 4 theories why, but every now and then when you're walking through that hallway, you will hear a rock hit that skylight. And it is birds picking up the aggregate or the rocks, which is the ballast on top of the roof, and dropping it. So the answer is no, we're going back with what you would see on the top of schools, which is a white TPO roof that is nice and tight.
If you ever are around when one of those birds drop a rock on there, it will definitely startle you because it's pretty loud.
Okay, any other questions for Kyle or Michael or Susan?
The agenda item also includes an update to the construction renovation project ordinance, which is the same fund that the Skylight will go into. We have, from time to time, we have to write off our projects just to get them off our books because they're completed. They need to come off our books. So this is more of an administrative proceeding. But I did provide a listing of the projects that we're going to write off, and when they've been completed, like I said, they're we're finished with them. We need to get them off our books because there's no activity. So it's more of a cleanup job, and there's $3.4 million worth of projects that we have completed through the past couple of years. So if there's any questions on those projects, but it looks like we've been busy with getting projects checked off the list. So,
Did have one thing I wanted Michael to touch on before we leave this, and that relates back to your questions about removing the aggregate, but also the comments about all the drywall work. Is you're in this building quite a bit, as our employees are here daily, and this is going to be a very disruptive process. I wanted him to just touch on a couple of those items and how it's going to be disruptive and how we'll have to work around it. And our employees would be great doing that with us, but they're going to know what's going on.
Right, and so there's going to be a very intricate system of scaffolding going around the rotunda on the second floor. I've talked to our contractor, and it will maintain access underneath it for the public and for the employees in the building. So there'll be no halls closed or no openings closed to any departments that aren't scheduled. It may come to that if we have to do it for a couple days just to get a particular task done, but we'll know well in advance of that. And that's, I think, the extent of the involvement inside the building. There'll also be a lot of stuff going on outside the building. If you look at this aerial here that our construction manager put together, the 2 yellow shaded areas, those are where a crane will be set up temporarily, and that'll be on the weekends when it happens. There'll also be an exterior stair tower built on the back side of the building, so between the back of the building and the post office, and that's so that the contractors working can have access to the roof without coming through the building. And then they're proposing to close Means Avenue on weekends when they do have to put the crane there on that side of the building. So those 2 red bars are where the street will be blocked off. Like Jonathan said, we'll know they're here because it's going to be a pretty invasive project. A lot of night and weekend work just to avoid disturbances here in the building. Does that answer your question, Jonathan?
Yeah, I just wanted to be aware, that's another part of the cost is because it can be so noisy and disruptive. It can, there's going to be a lot of times they have to work at night and weekends to avoid disrupting our functions and our public functions. So that also adds to that.
I might have missed this, but did you say how long it's going to take once you start? I guess not.
We're still waiting for we're still waiting for the construction schedule. We're hoping 3 to 4 months, and we'll be done. Some of it will have to do with what we find behind the drywall. And when I talk about the drywall, it's not just your surfaces on your walls. So all of the ceilings, in here it's ceiling tile, but everywhere that we've had leaks, it's not ceiling tile. So part of what Jonathan and Michael are referring to is when you walk in the front entrance of this building and you look up and you can kind of see up to the second floor, a lot of that ceiling is going to get cut out and pulled out. And I think that that's what's going to draw the project even on further is in terms of what they find.
And did you say when you hope to start?
Yes, we're looking for
March, April.
Yeah, we're looking for the middle of March is when we want to start.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is 4.8, which is Susan again.
Part of our debt process, you know, each time we have something we do continuously every month until leading up to the time we issue debt, we are scheduled to go to a local government commission on Wednesday and hope to be able to present a couple things to you at the regular meeting. It's a new debt process that we want to go through. We're going to ask for approval to issue debt sort of when we need it, like a home equity line. So we'll be able to give you more details of that. I will be attaching a resolution, say financing. It's enabling the staff to go out for debt, and it'll be in your agenda package for the third week in December. We wanted to wait till after we met with the local government commissions to get approval or sort of get an indication whether they are going to approve our new debt financing. Like I said, we'll give you more details on that later on. But what your agenda item will be for the third week in December will be the resolution authorizing us to go out for debt. And then we'll also update any reimbursement resolutions that we need to do that. And we'll have a call for a public hearing. The public hearing will be held in January, the January regular meeting. So this is all part of the process of issuing debt. The amount that you see there is the $127 million. That is the amount that we anticipate spending in a 24-month period. So we want to go do our debt financing package for the amount that we think we're going to spend in that two-year 24-month time frame. So we don't want to go, this is a new way of thinking, we don't want to go out for debt in February or June and go ahead and issue the entire debt for the courthouse, knowing that we can't spend that money that fast and we have to pay interest for that. So that's the whole process of going through this new way of getting our money when we need it. So this $127 million is not just the courthouse, but I want to let you know that. This is for the middle school land that we anticipate. We have purchased that already. We'll reimburse ourselves. The high school land that we're in negotiations with, the courthouse phase 1 and phase 2 that we'll spend through that 2-month time period, 2-year time period. The middle school construction, what we'll spend the first 24 months. The turf fields, you know, we talked about, what we'll do is we'll go out for debt and then pay ourselves back. So that will, the occupancy tax we're trying to plan on using for that turf field reimbursement. And then we're going to reimburse ourselves for the skylight and roof replacement projects. So all those projects, there's like 6 of them, what we're going to spend that first 24-month period, we're anticipating being $127 million that we'll draw down. After the 2-year period, we'll turn that into permanent debt, and then we'll be like a traditional debt service. So in those first 24 months, we're not paying principal and interest. We're just paying a small amount of interest on the funds that we actually use. It's a different way of thinking about it, but we'll continue to update you on this and walk you through the process. This part that we'll do in December is very traditional, where we have the resolution for us to go out for the debt and the reimbursement resolution. So both those things will be brought in your regular meeting. What questions that are bringing up?
Questions for Susan?
This may be a question for later, but so this particular item is on the consent agenda. That will move off for the discussions that the information you're going to bring to us. Is that correct?
I could include them in your agenda packet. If you want us to discuss it further, we could put it on the new business in December.
But if it's all the things we've already discussed and it's just in there, I don't know that there's a need. I was just a little confused.
Yeah, Susan, you had talked about when the two of you come back from Raleigh after you talked with the LGC, you wanted to make a presentation or give them an update. So that we probably need to pull that and move that to new business since it's going to be talking about that.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else?
Let me just ask one more question related to the interest rate. If we get this, so to speak, home equity type thing, and the interest rate is set, will it be the same as when we do the full thing in 2 years? Or will we have to go back to the drawing board because nobody, interest rates are really low right now? And is there a way that we can lock that interest rate in now and it carry on through when we do the full proceeds?
For this part of the debt, we will go out for bids, and typically it's like financial institutions and stuff like that that will let us do this program. But when we go out for the regular debt, it will be with some bigger brokers, and so it'll be probably to be two different people that's going to buy the debt. So I don't think we can lock us in for this first time period.
Well, this is the first time we've done it.
Right. But good question.
So by doing this, do we avoid some of those rating agency fees that we have to incur each time, which is pretty significant?
It is. We will not do that until we issue the permanent debt, which is anticipated to be 2 years from now.
That could have a impact on the effective interest rate by avoiding that expense. We could perhaps have a higher interest rate and still save money.
It gets very expensive when we issue debt.
Right.
And if you remember 2 years ago, we issued debt twice, in November and May, and we had to turn around, pay those fees each time. There's an application for the LGC each time, and then we have to pay the bond underwriter and the bond attorney, the underwriter, the rating agencies. It does mount up each time we issue debt. So I believe this program in the long run is going to be very beneficial to the county.
And I do think the one thing I would add to your question is the way these are structured is it's going to be based on what we think we'll spend in a 24-month period, but the term will actually be for 36 months, and that's to give us flexibility on when we take that to fixed debt. So if the market doesn't look good at 24 months, we may hold on to it for an extra 3, 4, 5 months until the rates come back down. So it gives us some flexibility.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Next up is 4.9 from Tax Administration, Electronic Listing Resolution, and David Thrift will talk with us.
Good evening. So I bring you a proposed resolution this evening. As you know, January is the listing season for property taxes. So all owners of property are required to list that property for property tax purposes in the month of January. By statute, that it has always been required to be a written process with a signed form that we create in our office. Statute does allow, by resolution, the ability for us to accept electronic listing. We have developed with our software vendor and our great IT department the capability to accept electronic listing for business accounts. We do that through an application on our website. And this resolution would allow us, by statute, to be able to accept those. It also creates the ability to extend that listing period by request, as we do now with regular listing, but we can also do that through the electronic listing portion, as long as the taxpayer requests that within the month of January. That extension can be granted until April 15th. So this resolution would just allow for that process to take place.
I would imagine that we would realize some savings from that process, a little bit more streamlined, that would be beneficial to both us and the taxpayer?
Certainly, and definitely a benefit to the taxpayer, especially as these are for business accounts. And it is at this point just for business accounts and existing accounts. But typically those are larger listings, and this provides a savings for the taxpayer and allows us to more efficiently handle those listings as well. So.
Any questions for David? All right. And I think you have the next one as well.
So actually the next two are kind of combined together. One is the memorandum of understanding and agreement, and then a resolution as well that covers the our desire to participate in the South Carolina set-off debt program. So this is a program that we already do in North Carolina, It's provided through the state with the Department of Revenue. It's a situation in which we have delinquent accounts that are owed. We can submit that information to the state, and if there's any income tax returns or lottery winnings that are presented out from the Department of Revenue, they would present us with those amounts to cover delinquent accounts before they provide the taxpayer with any refunds. And we already participate that in North Carolina. This is available in South Carolina as well. So any taxpayers that have property here but have residents in South Carolina that would receive funds from South Carolina will be able to submit those to the state of South Carolina.
Any questions on that for those of you that play the lottery? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to the approval of our regular meeting agenda. I think we just discussed one change a few minutes ago, which was moving item 14 on the consent agenda down to new business, so that would end up being H3. What is currently G14 would become H3.
We'll move for approval of the agenda with that change.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda, changing item G14 to H3. Any discussion?
Let me make sure I'm looking at this. Do we have the strategic plan on here too?
It's under the consent.
Okay. So if you have any questions or comments in between now and then that we need to do, we can always recommend that you pull it back off and then put it on the new business if we need to have more discussion.
And of course, I think that we all are aware of the fact that even at our regular meeting, if something comes up that any of you want to move something from consent agenda, we can do that as well. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. I'm sure that you're disappointed to learn that we do not have need of a closed session tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And we stand adjourned. Thank you.